This is the Florida Maquis Patreon channel, Sunday Roundtable. You're here, you're at the $15 level. I would like to say a big thank you for the patience of the Roundtable. We have done a lot of joint training. We have had a lot of things happen in the last month, and it has been quite a while since we've actually just had a Roundtable sit down that wasn't diverted by other things. One thing I want to cover today is something that is going to be very, very important in the next month or two. It doesn't have anything to do with Antarctica. It doesn't have anything to do with Venezuela. It actually has to do with Florida. And not the Florida Maquis, just Florida in general. I did put out a video a couple weeks ago that talked about this guy named Andrew Gillum, who came out of nowhere to win the Democratic nomination to run for governor here in just a few weeks. I mean, he's running now, but it's really going to heat up in October. I've watched this guy ever since I couldn't believe he won. Nobody could believe he won. He was in third or fourth place, and every poll had him at the best third, and he won by like 5 or 6 points. The pollsters completely blew it with this guy. And this is one of the biggest untold stories that, you mark my words, it's going to make a huge, huge impact. Because believe me, the people on the left at the halls of power that don't like this guy in D.C., Mr. Trump, I don't like him, but there's people a whole lot more powerful than me that don't like him for a whole lot more reasons. Once they get wind now that there's blood in the water down here, they are going to dump money into this state like nobody's business, and DeSantis is going to get crushed. And if you listen to this guy speak, he knows exactly what he's saying and what he's doing. He is an incredibly good, subtle psychological operator, which all politicians are. In essence, that's what they're doing, is they're getting you to come to a conclusion on your own, quote unquote, on your own, that you thought you came to on your own, when really they directed you there. Now, very recently, the guy next to him, he ran against in the primary, this guy named King. This guy is Harvard educated, got his Juris Doctor from Florida, former Republican. And that's going to go a long way, believe me, because Mr. Gillum here on the left talks a lot about having a job, having a good job, working for a living, getting an education, and going out and getting a good job and providing for yourself. He is no way, shape, or form the type of quote-unquote socialist that America is used to thinking about, that where everybody just sits around and waits for a handout from the government. It speaks to the type of democratic socialism that goes on in South America a lot. And what I'd like to share with you today is he recently made a surprise appearance in West Palm Beach. Now, for those of you who aren't from Florida or don't understand West Palm Beach, this is the home of the conservative right in Florida, and I would say maybe the country, because this is the home of Rush Limbaugh, and this is right outside of Mar-a-Lago, and there are a lot of heavy hitter conservatives that live down on the southeastern coast of Florida, just north of Miami, Fort Lauderdale, West Palm. All that area is heavily, heavily conservative. A lot of Israel types live there as well. And I'll just leave it at that. Now, we're going to listen to this guy speak for just a couple of minutes. I'm going to run this for probably about, 3.5 minutes or so. So if you want to skip past it, just a couple of major points that he covers are the idea of not having to work a crappy job and then a part-time job at night, the idea of having a job that actually pays your bills, the idea of being able to go to school, the idea of healthcare that everyone can afford. It's actually a kind of a subtle dig at Obamacare, believe it or not. I think he thinks that we can do something beyond Obamacare, even farther to the left, but we'll leave that be. I'm going to go ahead and speed this up to 1.5, so 3 minutes. So just a couple minutes of speaking here so you can just kind of get a beat on this guy.
It's with mixed emotion that we're here today because the truth is that we shouldn't have to remind this country to do right by the people of this country. And a year ago, almost to the day, we saw a failure at the federal level of epic proportion when it comes to the support for the people of Puerto Rico. I am here to tell you without apology that I am a friend of Puerto Rico today and will be a friend tomorrow and a friend for the day after and the day after and the day after. And that friendship has to endure inside and outside of tragedies that have impacted us, natural disasters that have impacted us. We know that hurricanes and natural disasters will come. The question is, what are we going to do to ensure that we do better the next time? And to me, what better looks like is that when our communities are ravaged and are torn apart due to natural disasters, we have leaders that don't fail us, but that rush to our sides to make sure that we can save lives and recuperate communities and get people back on their track. Whether it is in Puerto Rico or whether it is here in the state of Florida, which is home to the highest number of Puerto Ricans outside of the island of Puerto Rico, which means to be friends always. What you can expect is that here in the state of Florida, we should ensure that every individual, regardless of where they come from, what language they speak, what side of the track they grow up on, that you get access to a high-quality education. What we got to ensure is that for anyone who calls this state home, that you get access to life-saving health care so that you can take care of yourselves and your families without having being terrified of getting sick or being one illness away from bankruptcy. What we've got to ensure, working together right here in the state of Florida, that people are able to work one job and not 2 and 3 jobs in order to make ends meet to take care of themselves and their loved ones. What we have to ensure is that we build the economy in this state to want to start their own businesses, get access to capital. For those who are coming here from the island of Puerto Rico, that we have reciprocity in our licensing. And then for those who want to come to a Florida school, that they don't have to pay outrageous out-of-state tuition fees, that they're able to pay tuitions of in-state individuals here in the state of Florida. I had the privilege of visiting Puerto Rico and visiting with the governor and with mayors from all over the island and going and staying in a hacienda in the interior of Puerto Rico and seeing firsthand some of the impacts of Hurricane Maria. I want you to know that I want to be a friend who says that when we come under fire, when we come under the impacts of natural disasters, that Florida is going to extend the arm of brotherly and sisterly love. And that we're going to be a place that whether you come here temporarily or whether you're here permanently or whether you've been here for multiple generations, that you are represented in our government, that you're represented in our societies, not as a token, but as a full-fledged, caring, and contributing member of our society. You've earned that, and we deserve that. You've earned that, and we deserve it. You've earned it in the most diverse state, one of the most diverse states in all the land. We got to ensure that that diversity is present in every single aspect and in every single element of our society. That's what we deserve. But let me tell you this. We can't get there unless we raise our voices at the ballot box. We can't get there. We can't do what needs to be done. We can't have justice for Puerto Rico unless Boricuas vote. And I'm not telling you who to vote for. I'm simply saying something that I was always told. Something that I was always told as a kid. That if you are not at the table, it means you are likely on the menu. When it's time for us to get off the menu, it's time for us to build a table that we all get to sit at. And we can do that this upcoming election. We are not here to be tokenized. We're here to be respected. We're not here to be taken for granted. We're here to have our seat at the table. We are not here to be pandered to. We're here to have power. And we're going to demand that power at the ballot box on November 6th when we take back this state. God bless you. God bless you. Yes, we can, and yes, we will. Take care.
Did you catch that there at the end? Yes, we can. I likened this guy to Obama because he came out of nowhere. And nobody thought at that time, back in 2008, anybody was going to run against Miss Clinton. And he not only ran against her, he slaughtered her. This is going to be the next Barack Obama. I'm telling you this right now. He is going to play on this disdain that's been created throughout the Latin American community by the current administration. I know the current administration didn't intend for every single Latin American person to take personally what he said about shithole countries and murderers, rapists, and thieves. However, it goes to show his amateurish nature. It goes to show his ignorance of how the political system works. Because whether he's liked that or not, that's his label now. And he is going to regret it in this state. You mark my words, he is, to my mind, he has lost this state. DeSantis, I think, is just a sacrificial lamb, to be truthful. He doesn't stand a chance against this guy. Because he's going after people that are socially conservative. The guy standing next to him here, his lieutenant governor, was one of the guys that he was running against in the primary. The guy's a former Republican. He's Harvard educated, got his Juris Doctor from Florida, and is about as socially a conservative guy as you want to meet. And there are a lot of people in this state, that are very, very suspicious of the man in Washington and his true intentions, especially after that whole take the guns first, due process second nonsense. The not labeling China a currency manipulator thing. One of the differences about Florida was alluded to by this guy, Mr. Gillum, that it's an incredibly, incredibly diverse state. There's a lot of money here from a lot of places in the world. It's one of the few states in the Union that could stand on its own. I do believe if the country ever fell apart and things stood back up in regions, that Florida could stand up almost as a country. I think California could do it. I think Texas could do it. But very few others. They would probably break off into regions, that might be able to act like that. But Florida could stand on its own just simply because of the connections that it's made through all of Latin America, South America. There's a lot of Russians here. There's a lot of Chinese here, Koreans. It's one of these people. Orlando brings through 60 million visitors a year. That's more than 1 million a week from all over the world. And so you cannot have the idea that Mr. Trump has of the future and have that play for very long down here. He benefited from a great deal of anger at the last administration, and a lot of people that absolutely, completely loathed Miss Clinton. Almost unanimously, the only reason that people in Florida voted for the current administrator was because he was not her. Well, she's gone. And that's going to change everything in this governor's race. And when this guy takes over, and he will, there's going to be a sea change that's going to ripple through this country because of it. And I very much doubt this guy stays governor for very long. The last thing we're going to leave with is this ad from his site that hasn't made it to TV yet, but he's raising money to do it. It plays into this idea, and this is really the point. I know it's 13 minutes. I don't normally go this long. But if you could take away one thing from this video, take this away. He's going to subtly play on the idea that Donald Trump has never had a job. Donald Trump's never had to work for a living. He's never had to consider getting a promotion or not getting one or driving to and from. And that somebody without that belief system, without that experience in their life, couldn't possibly be representative of the people. And we're going to go ahead and play this real quick. This is very, very quick.
I can still hear my grandmother's voice. She said, go to school, mind your teachers, get your lesson, and one day bring that education home. Bring it home for your little brother and your little sister who don't know what an education is yet. Bring it home for that little boy down the street that you play with. God knows where he's going to end up. Bring it home for your mother and for your father who get up every day to go out there and work on somebody else's job. It was a reminder that if we were going to get anywhere in life, we would get there together. This could be our story, Florida, written by and for anyone who has ever been told that they don't belong, been counted out, or told that they can't make a difference. Together, we can bring home affordable health care. We can bring it home for better jobs and better wages. We can bring it home for education that our children deserve. My name is Andrew Gillum. Let's bring it home, Florida.
I know, it's just a feeling. I just have this gut feeling when you listen to this guy talk. He has that something that Obama had that's able to speak to people in a way that other politicians don't get. Masterful psychological operation here. And in all of this, not one word said about the man in Washington. But subtly, that's the message. So, we will leave it there. Also, just as a background, this is his Lieutenant Governor, Chris King. Do some reading on this guy. He's got some pretty interesting connections. How far back he goes. Born to David and Marilyn King. Father was a lawyer for the Fair Districts movement. Combat gerrymandering. Chris, mother Marilyn, 27 years as a board member, including 2 terms, of Orlando's premier health organization, Orlando Health. So, his lieutenant governor has some experience in his background, and people in his background that know a little bit about healthcare, which I think is going to play greatly into the next iteration of what everyone refers to as, quote-unquote, a single payer or Obamacare or whatever you want to call it, that there's going to be a new version put out, and it's going to be way better than the old one. So, we will leave it there. Round table. Keep an eye on Andrew Gillum and what happens in Florida. Because if they can take Florida away from the current administration, I do not envy anyone having to deal with that man for the next 2 years. Like, share, subscribe.